It's like no one really knows you. And how are you going to connect with people when you aren't even connected to yourself? Hello, my conscious collective. How are you? How's everybody doing? I'm fine. I'm all right. I've been having a really long day. I just got back from a trip, and yeah, I really thought that this would be a good time for us to have a real talk about feeling isolated and feeling disconnected, especially as the most digitally connected generation ever, ever. Why, as a generation, are we struggling with isolation and disconnection when we have at our fingertips the entire world? It's endless. The possibilities are endless. But yet we're still left feeling lonely. We're still left feeling disconnected. And we're still left questioning if we belong, or, feeling burnt out. There are so many things that we're struggling with. And I don't want to talk about the problem of it all for too long, because I really want to get into, I want to help you reframe I want your perspective by the end of the video to understand that loneliness and isolation isn't just about being physically alone. Like, there is so much more than actually being physically alone that can cause you to feel isolated and disconnected. And this is coming from personal experience and also research that I've looked up. Actually, there is, and trigger warning, there are about 100 deaths per hour, according to the World Health Organization, that are linked to isolation and loneliness, and more than 871,000 a year, which is crazy. And I know COVID was also a big thing that made us all feel a lot more isolated and a lot more digitally codependent. And that's something that I struggle with too. Like, I'm not exempt from any of this. I think I'm one of the people that is more susceptible to this, because also being someone who is neurodivergent and someone who has had a really hard time socializing and connecting with people, feeling lonely and isolated is something that I've experienced my whole life. Despite having a house full of my family, despite learning how to make friends as I got older, as I learned how to be the version of me that people liked, that actually can feel even more isolating. And one of the things that can feel really isolating, the first thing that I want to talk about, is when you grow up, maybe you're neurodivergent, maybe you simply find that your caregiver gives you more attention when you are pleasing them and when you're making yourself the version of you that they like. Maybe that happened to you. But when you do this, when you allow yourself to conform to whatever it is that anyone else wants from you that isn't actually you, it can feel extremely lonely and it can feel extremely isolating, because you're disconnecting yourself from yourself, first of all. Second of all, no one really knows you. And when no one really knows you, who is actually connecting with you? Like, how are you going to connect with people when you aren't allowing yourself to be you in order to actually connect with people? And as we go on this journey together of learning how to connect with people consciously and create deeper connections, we will talk a lot more about it. There's actually a whole conscious connection method that I have created over my own experience of learning this the hard way, which you don't have to learn it the hard way. Actually, when you're feeling disconnected and you're feeling isolated, or you're going through something stressful or hard times, that is an opportunity to connect more. About the conscious connection method, it's a 4-part method that goes into the consciousness aspect, the confidence aspect, the clarity, and the charisma, all parts of consciously connecting that I have learned. And I have a free guide about this actually that I will link down below in this video that you can get sent to your email. Just fill out the form and yada yada, yeah, all that. You know how it goes. But Anyways, about feeling extremely disconnected even when you're around people, some people also can be socially functional. They can be very socially functional. They can be at parties. Maybe they have a big friend group, but maybe this person also doesn't let anyone see what's going on with them past the surface as well. So when you look at these people that have big friend groups, or it seems like they are socially connected, whereas you might be more introverted, you might, maybe even physically isolate yourself. That's something that I also that was a big habit of mine, that is a big challenge for me to not fall back into, that I consciously have to make the effort to not go back into, which also I use the methods from the Conscious Connection Guide for me to not fall back into that. But when you're looking at these people, you don't actually see the things that they're going through. As much as some people might be more socially adequate, it doesn't change the fact that they might feel disconnected within their lives. They might not tell people the actual vulnerable information that if they were to share with people, it would open a door for real connection. Whereas you might feel physically isolated, you might feel like you don't belong anywhere, that you don't belong in any group. And that is something that's completely normal, especially if you're someone who has felt like they needed to be someone else in order to be accepted. Like me, like someone who has had to mask in order to feel accepted. And girls are more inclined to mask to be someone that they see is more acceptable to the people around them. And that can feel extremely isolating as well, even when your peers start to accept you. It's like no one really knows you. And how are you going to connect with people when you aren't even connected to yourself? Because when you start to mask and when you start to be someone that you're not, you start to feel a lot more disconnected from yourself. And when you feel disconnected from yourself, you close off your capacity to be able to connect with other people. Like, you can be around someone, you can be in their vicinity, in their space, but not feel emotionally connected to someone. Because in order to emotionally connect to someone, there is a level of vulnerability. There's a certain intimacy that comes with emotional connection. And actually, a big thing that inspired me to talk about the isolation epidemic is that there is a certain stage of psychosocial development that we are going through in our age, in our 20s, in our 30s. According to Erik Erikson's theory on psychosocial development, he talks about the stage where you're in your 20s and 30s. I think it's like the 5th stage or something. Gosh, I haven't looked into it in a long time, but that stage of psychosocial development is called the intimacy versus isolation conflict. And in your 20s and 30s is when you go through this. And basically, this phase of your life determines whether you're able to live a life of intimacy, building those deep, intimate connections, or if you are going to live a life where you are experiencing more isolation because you didn't learn how to build those deep, intimate connections. And when you're in this stage, a big determining factor of whether or not you will experience those intimate connections is if in the previous stage, which is your identity versus something. Okay, I'm gonna look this up because I'm actually quite frustrated that I can't. Oh, identity versus role confusion. Yeah, so the stage before the isolation versus intimacy conflict is the identity versus role confusion conflict, where either you develop a strong identity where you're confident in who you are and your identity, or you conform to what other people want of you and you're confused about who you are and you're being all of these different things for other people. Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. But when you have a weak identity, you don't have a strong identity, you're not really sure of who you are, that can make it harder for you to develop deep, intimate connections. So there are just so many things that go into this, like loneliness. We picture loneliness as someone being alone in their room and not talking to people. That can definitely be it. I've been friends or I've known people who have gone through extreme loneliness and extreme isolation, and even the people who act like they don't need connections and they're fine or they're super avoidant, everyone craves connection. Every single human craves connection because it is a fundamental human need. But why this happens is because a lot of us aren't taught how to connect emotionally. We're taught how to, we follow the examples of our caregivers. And a lot of the times our caregivers don't give us great examples on how to connect emotionally or how to even feel safe in intimacy, because when your closest connection is also your most distant connection, you can feel almost safer in that disconnection. For me personally, I grew up with a mom who was very, very busy. I'm the oldest of many siblings. And so yeah, you can see how that kind of turned into me being hyper independent, me being very self-sufficient, me being always the good kid or the easy kid, where actually I was very emotionally disconnected. I was dissociated. I felt very lonely. I was going through a lot. I had a lot of mental health challenges as a kid that I very much just kept to myself. And that made me feel safer in disconnection, because my first closest connection is also one of my most disconnected, distant connections. And this is something that I still have to consciously work through, which everyone has things that they need to consciously work through. That's why the consciousness aspect of the conscious connection method is the first part. And it goes into how to look at those patterns, how to become conscious of those patterns, how to look at the shadows, the things that you don't like to share. And again, if you want to look at the conscious connection method, I will put a link down low. But the thing is when you become conscious of these patterns, it gives yourself an opportunity to rewire those patterns. There are actually patterns in our brain that are based off of things that we went through as a kid, things that we've learned, things that we've just experienced throughout our lives. And there are certain paths in our brain that are more prominent because that's what we're used to. So when we are going through things, we're going to emotionally react automatically in those ways, which is why it's so important to become conscious of that pattern so that you can create new patterns. I am still consciously working on things that have to do with my confidence, and every day I'm getting more confident. Every day I'm getting more comfortable with showing up, not just on camera, but showing up as myself for the people in my life. And this is a journey that has taken me a really, really long time to get to where I'm at. And if I can do it, I know that you can do it. And if you feel isolated or if you feel lonely, just know that there is nothing wrong with you for craving connection or for feeling this way, or like feeling more comfortable when you're by yourself, but also craving connection. I know it's like, it can be a really confusing experience, but this is something that we can go through together. You don't need to do it alone. You don't need to figure out everything alone by yourself. So you can learn it the hard way, or you can learn from my own lessons. So hopefully you don't have to go through everything that I went through. But if you do, just know that I'm here. It's really up to you, but I'm here, okay?